So can I get a warning at like 4 and 5?
Yeah.
Okay.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
4 and 5 is good. All right. Can everyone remember the last time that they found themselves watching people? Could have been in the airport or a park or a crowded bus or train, but just found themselves watching someone and trying to imagine who that person is and what kind of life they lead. Try and take yourself to that point, and then try and imagine that same place with a bomb going off. Can you still see who these people are in the midst of the panic and chaos that follows? This is the setting that Brian Turner creates in 2,000 Pounds as he takes us through the eyes and the experiences of 5 victims of a vehicle-borne IED, along with the perspective of the bomber himself. Starting with Turner's background on and his opinions on both war and service, and then moving into the poem portraying both the 5 victims separately, and then moving into how Turner reflects on the bomber himself, I will show that while Turner doesn't condemn war itself, he places a very high price on it as he views it as the destruction of humanity in some of its most basic elements. A bit of background on the setting that he makes. Asher Square is a marketplace in the city of Mosul. Mosul is the 5th largest city in Iraq with a population just under 2 million citizens. Some of the IED info, per some unclassified EOD documents, the minimum safe distance for detonating a bomb of comparable size is about 534 meters, so about 5 football fields of completely open space to avoid any kind of injury or harm. Move that sort of a blast into a smaller marketplace surrounded in by buildings and populated with people and traffic, and you really have an idea of the destruction that this kind of an attack would really project. As we know, Turner served in Iraq in the infantry, but he also comes from a longer background of service. His father served in the Cold War, his uncle in Vietnam, his grandfather in World War II, and his great-grandfather in World War I. But that all said, despite his history of service, he's actually against the Iraq War, and that essentially boils down to what I think is a matter of purpose in his eyes. When asked in an interview if he would let his son or his grandson serve after him, he didn't outright oppose service. He just places a very high price on it. He set 2 very strong stipulations, the first of which being asking them if they are comfortable taking part in taking someone's soul, burying them and leaving the dirt over their grave and walking the rest of the days of their life with that weight on their shoulders. And if they're first okay with that, then to visit a foreign country for a year, to get an experience of another culture, but also to see America with a remove. And if, with all of that perspective in mind, they can then serve with a clean conscience, then at that point they would be all the better soldier for it, and that he would welcome their decision to serve. But this just shows the weight that Turner puts on the intent of anyone who wants to place themselves in the path of an act such as war. What's unique about the 5 victims, though, is that while Turner captures several demographics, young and old, men and women, military and civilians alike, none of these people, by their intentions, would have really placed themselves in the start of harm's way. In fact, in one of the stanzas where an old woman dies cradling her grandson, she says, if you'd asked her 40 years earlier if she could see herself an old woman with a bomb exploding at the market among all these people, she'd have said it's impossible. This isn't the way we die. The other military members that he depicts are a sergeant in the National Guard and a civil affairs officer active duty. But none of these people, none of these civilians, none of these military members would have seen themselves actively going into harm's way. And that's part of why I think he views the Iraq War differently than he would have viewed the others that his fathers and grandfathers served in. All of these victims, additionally, on top of the lives they lose, they stand to lose something greater. A feeling of love as a bridal shop shatters, and even the images of couples fade to nothing. The beauty that a civil affairs officer tries to create as he blows bubbles to try to give hope, or a sergeant looking at the wedding ring crushed into the bone on his finger as he reflects on the love that he's lost. All of these people get a higher feeling of loss, except for the bomber himself, who almost seems to get a romanticized death and gain. As Turner says, that he is everywhere, he is of all things. His touch is the air taken in, his is the sound the heart makes quick and panics rush, the surge of blood, searching for light and color, as the martyr cries with the word his soul is made of, inshallah. And it's strange that he gives this bomber, this terrorist, more than just a blast and a good riddance. But in a way, the same way that Turner reflects on the intent behind action, this man isn't attacking a foreign citizen in his eyes. He's being occupied by a foreign nation. And so the way he defends himself is something that Turner gives a sort of credence and respect to. It all comes back to a matter of purpose. Turner concludes his poem with a really strong reminder of the losses of war. In contrast to all the panic at the blast, he leaves the victims behind whispering the word Habib, which is saved for loved ones in close bonds like spouses, your children, your best friends. His last line is Habib over and over again, that it might not be forgotten. And it sounds at first like an attempt to end very positively until the reader remembers that all the people trying to bring about this goodwill are gone. And I think this is the nature of war to Turner, that because it can destroy so much, it requires an intent and a conviction that really outweighs the cost of the loss.